जय जय श्री राधे श्याम श्री नित्य गौर हरि बोल. I'm preparing to go away for the winter, so I've just been doing a little bit of tidying up in the garden, and I thought it would be good to make a video about things that I feel I've learned from this season. So at the moment the garden still looks pretty lush. It's quite nice with the flowers. It's getting colder now, so we're just enjoying the last of the flowers, I think. And we might get a few more tomatoes, peppers, chard. Today I just picked all the chard out of here and froze it, picked all the peppers, but there is still some. I can see that there's probably going to be more if it stays warm. So what I did this year was to just really plant quite willy-nilly, and plant quite densely because I wanted the garden to be quite sort of compact. And I think one thing that I would do differently is to be a bit more selective about what I plant where. And that's only because it's quite hard work to try and keep an eye on all your produce when the season is in full swing and things just keep, especially the chard, just kept growing like mad. And I had to try and remember where are all the chard plants to keep an eye on them and to remember when we needed to pick things. So I have beds especially for the peppers, and I had one bed just with mainly butternut squash, so that was pretty good. But I think I would maybe next time have different beds and only plant maybe 2 or 3 varieties of plants in one bed. Um, the other thing that I would do differently is to um, organize the garden a little bit more compactly, or to put in a watering system. So at the moment, or this season, we had one bed here, which is on the side of the house, and then the main garden is over there. And we had a potato bed in the back. Then we've got the rookery here that also needed watering. So you can see the hose is kind of going all over the place. At the beginning, I didn't even have a hose. I was lugging the watering can around. So that was really hard work. And even with the hose, it's kind of annoying having to drag it all over the place. Apart from the fact that, of course, watering from above is so much more wasteful in terms of water use than if you had like a drip irrigation or so. I don't think I'm going to get drip irrigation next season, because I don't think we'll be ready still to have like the proper garden location. So I feel like that might be a bit of a waste of money and energy to put a drip irrigation in. But I'm gonna kind of think about maybe only having beds next to each other in one location where I can easily reach with the hose, or yeah, just something. I need to think about that. So that's one point that needs to change just for me to have less work. I kind of got to know these different plants, and I kind of saw how much space they all need. So we had so many different plants. I think generally I planted just too densely. So the butternut squash did really well, but it kind of pushed out everything else. There was peas here as well. They didn't do very well at all. Um, then okra, I had 4 okra plants in this bed, and they didn't grow at all because the butternut squash was just too fast and was just overgrowing everything because before the other plants had a chance to actually establish themselves. In the main garden, again, I had a few okra plants in there, and I realized there was only one that actually did fairly well, and I had some produce off of it, and that's this one over there, just on the left hand side. And you can see that it actually wants to grow quite big and bushy, and even this one is like a little bit leggy, and that's because it just doesn't have enough space. So in the spring, when everything is bare, like my temptation was to plant everything really close together because I wanted to really cover the ground. I want a ground cover. And I need to be a bit more, I need to just get a bit more experience of which plants work for that, because I didn't really do it very well. And mostly plants were crowding each other out. For example, these orange flowers, that is one plant. I didn't know they could grow this big. I just wasn't aware they would grow this big if they could. And these ones too, these pink ones, they can grow quite big and bushy. Where they didn't have space, like over there, they just didn't, and they didn't really thrive so well. Yeah, so I'll try and learn a bit more about spacing of the plants. I feel that I've learned like what kind of care each of these plants need. And I'm prepared more about what sort of time um, that will take up in my schedule. So, for example, to keep the flowers nice, which the flowers are very important to me because I want flowers for offering, um, to keep them nice and to keep them growing back, they need to be deadheaded regularly, like at least once a week. So that is a job that I'm going to have to be prepared to do. And if the planting is done a bit more intelligently, hopefully it'll be easier to do as well. Also, the tomatoes need a bit more care in tying them up. I was sort of just improvising with the stakes, and so next time I'm going to be prepared to have a more well organized bed with maybe a frame where they can grow up nicely, because I wasn't actually aware they are able to grow this big. So I just kind of underestimated that. Same with the sunflowers that we had here, they just grew like higher, 1.5 times my height, and I was just putting bigger and bigger stakes in all the time as they grew. Um, and they overtook the garden a little bit, so I would plant them somewhere else next time. I think that's about it. So, um, planting differently, spacing differently, organizing the garden differently, um, thinking about watering more, and preparing to do proper maintenance of what I plant, is what I'm going to take into the next season, which I'm looking forward to. But first, it's winter, and it'll also be nice to see just everything kind of wind down. And yeah, that's a nice time of the year. Jai Jai Shri Radhe Sham Shinta Gora Harivo Shishiguru Garanga Gandharvi Kakiri Radhe Radhe